It's time now for our regular look at culture and arts with historian and writer David Oldroyd-Bolt. David, you've been to the Holbein exhibition at the Queen's Gallery, haven't you?
Yes, somewhat later than other critics because I've been away, but this is an exhibition about Hans Holbein the Younger, who was the court painter to Henry VIII. He came to this country first in 1526. He had been in Basel in Switzerland, where he'd been painting mostly religious paintings, but then, thanks to a letter of introduction from the humanist Erasmus to Sir Thomas More, Lord Chancellor later on, and later on executed for opposing Henry VIII on the Reformation, he came to England, and he quickly, through painting an extraordinary series, or starting of drawings and then paintings of Thomas More's family, became the go-to painter of the day. He was, the celebrity. If you wanted your portrait painted, if you wanted to be recognised as a great and good person of the land, you got Holbein in.
Because they couldn't take selfies.
No,
so they had to get him.
Drawing yourself in the mirror is not terribly easy.
So, yeah, was he sort of like the version of the latest iPhone Max? 14 Max, he was like the best of the best.
Well, I mean, he was the celebrity. He was the only real portrait artist of the day, and he was the person, I think, who moved portraiture from what it had previously been, which is to put real people in the figure of, say, John the Baptist or Julius Caesar or Antony and, Cleopatra. Instead of idealising and mythologizing them, he painted them as they were and drew them as they were. And this is the point about this exhibition, because here we have the most extraordinary collection of his drawings that's been on public display for 30 years. And it shows you that he was a draftsman of almost incomparable genius at using the very finest lines and the very smallest amount of colour to bring out the person and who they were. And
did he focus on the rich and famous, or did he sort of shoot?
Well, yes, because they could afford it.
Oh, really? But he wasn't just like, oh, that's a beautiful cat.
No.
Or a vase of flowers.
This is a snapshot of the very height of Tudor society, of Henrician society. And in seeing these drawings, what you see is the evolution of that society, because you start with Thomas More and John Fisher, who were both executed by Henry for opposing him on the divorce from Catherine of Aragon and the the removal of the church from the control of Rome. And then you see Anne Boleyn and Thomas Howard, who were both later executed for having an affair. Anne Boleyn was, of course, the reason for the Reformation. Then you see Jane Seymour, the queen who Henry is supposed to have loved the most. And in her picture, painted when she was a year from death, which of course she didn't know this, but she died in childbirth, you see the innocence of the woman and her unease with the position in which she's found herself. The pursing of the lips and the set of the brow show very clearly, just as any picture would, any photograph would, that this was a woman who didn't really like the position in which she'd found herself, but she knew she had to carry it through. It's the most exquisite piece of drawing. And then later on you have his grand set pieces, which were painted as murals in Whitehall Palace, but sadly were burnt down in 1698. But these copies made by other artists and these sketches that we have show that this was a work of art well to the equal of any great mural, or any great roof painting, such as the Sistine Chapel. And it's a great shame for English history that it's lost.
And, it sounds like you're obviously a massive fan and you recommend people get out there and check it out.
Well, you've got until the 14th of April to go see it. It's at the Queen's Gallery at Buckingham Palace, and it will take you only an hour to go round, but I think for anyone who has even the remotest appreciation of the beauty of drawing, and anyone who wants to know what English society looked like in the mid-16th century, spend that hour, spend that £19, which gets you back in as many times as you want.
Did they have teeth? They had their teeth?
Oh, yeah.
Painted those teeth in.
Well, again, they were rich, and it was before sugar was really widespread.
Although it has to be said that as you told that story of all the people that he painted, it was a bit ominous that they all died shortly afterwards. I'm just saying, it could have been a curse.
Well, the curse of Holbein.
Yeah. Sticking with the royal theme, I hear there's a play about the late Queen Mother, and it's been given an unusual trigger warning.
Yes, it says this play was set in 1979 and they thought things differently then.
Oh.
The past is a foreign country, they do things differently there. Isn't it tedious that every time now you see something in public that represents historical reality, people have to be warned about it? I think you can judge the quality of a country's confidence and intellect by its public announcements. For instance, if you walk through a railway station here and you listen to the announcement, you would think that this country is entirely made up of juvenile idiots. And if you walk up the steps at Paddington Station, hold the handrail, don't look at your mobile phone, don't have a drink, be careful. And you think this is just another one in that chain that must make foreigners think, what has happened to Britain? There's a play in the West End at the moment that warns people this play contains the handling of cooked eggs. It's Python-esque. You expect John Cleese to walk on and do it in a stupid voice. Are we now such an infantile society that we can't accept that things happened differently 40 years ago, that we can't accept that they may have thought things then that we don't think, and that perhaps clashes with the way that we think things are now? And I think, is this coming from the playwright? Is this coming from scared producers who think that maybe someone's going to sue them? Is it coming from the theatre, who, again, are afraid? Or is this just a massive overreaction of all three? I mean, do you get this on your shows?
No, well, obviously not here. The whole point of the channel was set up to to combat all of that. But you're right, and I think arguably it's all of you know what it is? It's people acting ahead of time, anticipating something that actually hasn't happened.
Yeah.
No one's complained that it was set in 1979 and things are different, but they're so timid now, these gatekeepers, that they are making the problem worse themselves.
Well, I agree. For me, part of theatre, not all theatre, part of theatre, is supposed to be to provoke, to shock, to entice different thoughts, and perhaps the idea that, oh, that was different, maybe it was right, maybe it was wrong, but you have to give people the kudos that they're intelligent enough to have that internal dialogue. And I think so many of these announcements, so many of these trigger warnings are either, as you say, anticipating an offence that practically nobody would take if it were not pointed out that they might. And is treating the audience like absolute fools. And if I were going to that play and saw that, I would feel rather offended at the announcement.
It's treating them as fools, and then we become fools. David Oldroyd-Bolt, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.